Hello, and welcome to As Built, the podcast from Graphic Machine about architecture firms, buildings, and how both get built. I'm your co host, Patience Jones. With me is your other co host,
Brian Jones.
Thank you for joining us. Today, we are very, very pleased to be joined by architect Xenou, the founder of Elastic, an award winning architecture and interior design studio based in Athens, Greece. And Ria is kind enough to be doing this from Athens, which is very exciting and we very much appreciate. So, Ria, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited as well. Super nice.
You have a very interesting journey of how you became an architect, including things that you had to do in secret. So tell us about that.
No. Okay, so as you already mentioned, I'm Greek. Like I'm a Greek architect, and Greece is not really an international destination, not destination for in terms of hospitality, but the destination in terms of design. So being on the side of art or architecture or design back at the days when I was young, it was kind of like not the standard way of doing things. My father and my mother had nothing to do with design, was a finance and a housewife. But I always loved art and specifically sculptures. Every moment I remember myself, I was always doing sculptures and art and working on proportions and observing everything in nature or building environment, everything about the form, the function, the proportions, the symmetry, the materials, the content. All of these things were fascinating me. So I once said to my father, I want to be an architect. And obviously that was out of question. So he said, no, you're going to become a civil engineer or finance. You pick and choose. So as a good daughter, I did. I went to civil engineer. I finished university. And 5 years later, because in Greece is 5 years of university, I was already dating my current husband, so Alexandros, and he's my partner in Elastic as well, and he's an architect, right? He was studying at that time, he was studying architecture, and the moment he understood who I was, he understood how much I loved art and beauty and design. He said, you should be an architect, you shouldn't be a civil engineer. I was miserable, and I went back to university, and this time I did it in secret. So I had my allowance. I started working. I gathered all the money that I had to pay some teachers to teach me, some basic things to go back to the exams. And I had excellent grades. I went to architecture and finished my way through architecture with a lot of persistence, and I was very strongly opinionated. I really wanted to do my thing. So my whole journey with architecture was a little bit of, controversial, but at the end it ended up with great grades. So I'm very happy I did that. But yes, it was not an easy path. No, not at all.
Oh, but it was a brave path.
Oh yeah, it was fun.
So, as an artist, how did you know that architecture was the right medium for you?
Well, architecture, it's a form of art that people can live in, right? So the way that I see it is you create this art piece, which is functional, it's technical, it has engineering, but it is art because you have to work with all the tools I very well know because I've worked all my life and I still do that, which is, the basic, what makes something beautiful. And it's not a prescription, it's more like a feel that you get when you see something and you see the proportions and the forms. And then when you have all that included, you have to pass the message because architecture is meaningful. It has a lot to do with the culture, the history, the analysis of the landscape, all the elements that, architecture and history, they're very, very well connected, psychology, all those disciplines together. So the fascinating part about architecture is that I get to do this kind of, let's say, I put it in quotes, art, which is not exactly art, but people get to live in that. they get to experience that. And then you form their lives, you form their experiences. Maybe it's vacation, maybe it's a museum, maybe it's a house. And you get into people's lives in a way, I know when somebody goes into a project that I've designed, I know what they did. I know how they woke up, what they saw first time, how did they experience the dinner, the lunch, where did they have breakfast. I know everything about them. They never met me. I will never meet them, but we know each other in a way, and they've been inside my mind as well. So it's a kind of like it's a spectacular profession. And also sometimes when I have architects or young people, they come here in the office and they ask for advice, or whether they want to study architecture, or if they're studying architecture and they have questions, why did you become an architect? And I simply say that, when you travel to a place, you go there because you want to see the acts of God, which is nature, right? It's you see the rivers, you see the mountains, you see the sea, but you also get to see the acts of the architect because you want to see the buildings. No matter where or when these buildings were built, they form the built environment. So it's kind of a very, very important thing. And you have to be very responsible to do that. But if you decide to do it, then it has to become your life all the way. It's no business hours. There's no like, that's not my job. It goes all the way.
Why did you decide to start your own firm instead of working for a firm or a brand?
As I told you, I was studying architecture. And at that time, there was a friend of mine. I was at the last year of being a student. I was, let's say, 1 year before finishing. And a friend of mine wanted to have some drawings for a sports center for a football team, like a very well known Greek football team. But these drawings, I was asked to do something really draft, for marketing purposes, not that it's going to be built or anything. So what I did instead, I did a lot of research. I studied a lot. I took every book I could have my hands on, and I spent some time to find a very, very strong concept because I love narrative. I love the concept. I love the whole thing of why. There's always a why. Why am I doing this? Why should this be important? And I had a very, very strong concept that was related to the history of the football team. The football team was already for 100 years. And I engaged in this effort friends of mine, and all of my friends were artists, obviously. So some were sculptors, some were doing paintings. And we together, we had a building like a museum that was inspired by the history of this football team. And every wall had to say a story about the story of the football team. So I gave him those drawings and he put it on the drawer. And a few years later, maybe a year later, a new owner of the team came up and he was really well known. He was like David Beckham. He was a football player. Everybody loved him. And he was married to this fancy singer. He was a football player of this specific team and he managed to buy the team. And he opened the drawer and he saw my drawings. And for some reason that God wanted, he knew how to read drawings because back then we didn't have renders, obviously, it was all drawings. So he saw the drawings and he absolutely loved it. He calls me. I'm on my way to the airport because I'm leaving with a one-way ticket to New York with my husband, which is Alexandros. I just finished university. And he says, I want you to do the training center for me, what I designed. And I said, I can't. Like, I'm leaving. I don't know when I'm going to be back. So he said, okay, I'll wait. So he waited 40 days. I came back. And actually, when I came back, he was waiting for me because other architects, they knew he wanted to do a training center. So they were all over him. They were saying, oh, we want to do this for you. I said, no, I have an architect. I love the idea. He loved the concept. And we have an appointment the first day I'm back. And I missed the appointment because I have a jet lag. So I fall asleep. So he calls me later in the afternoon and said, what is wrong with you? He was like, "What?" I said, okay. Yes. And so I went there and that was my first project. And that was actually the football training center for AEK, which is one of the best football soccer teams in Greece. Super well known, a lot of publicity. Immediately I hired people and I opened my own studio. That was the story. So
Oh
right
my
from the start.
gosh. That's amazing.
So, so tell us about the firm's name. How did you choose Elastic?
Elastic is obviously is connected to the fact that I love art and sculpture. So it was a time where I was battling between the stretched lines. I always hand sketch, like I do everything by hand. I'm not familiar with the computers or anything in the. So stretching the line, becoming more dynamic, when you do architecture and you stretch, everything, the perspective, and it becomes more dynamic. Or curving the line and it becomes more female and more feminine in a way. So all those things they led in the name of elastic, and actually elastic shouldn't have the name architects or designers because we do interior design as well. It's just elastic. And now that we're in the office and we work on several projects around the world, we say that's not the elastic way. And then everybody understands what this means, but nobody knows how to explain it because it's just a way that we all know what this means, but there's no words to describe it. And elastic is just a mentality. I don't know. Maybe this is it.
We've talked about the firm is based in Athens and it was severely impacted by Greece's financial crisis. What drove you to choose the path of redirecting and rebuilding instead of shutting the firm down?
So there were a couple of reasons. So just to say that today we have offices in Toronto as well, and we open on the 1st of August, we're opening London. So
Oh,
back at that time,
congratulations.
thank you. So back at that time, it was just Athens, and it was a time with a financial crisis that whatever projects we were doing sports buildings, right? No hospitality or anything like that. But all the projects we had were either paused or canceled. Like that was when the phone was ringing, we were terrified to pick up the phone and say, okay, hello. And it would say, oh, I'm so sorry. We have to stop the project. And it was a whole thing like for the whole industry. It was not just us. Everybody had problems with work, and all the architects they either worked without salary or they were fired from their businesses. So I didn't want to fire or not pay or do anything to my architects because my architects were the most precious thing in my life. So it was a decision that we had to go outside of Greece and find the strength and become international. And that was the only way. There was no way for me to stay with projects in Greece that wouldn't exist, actually. They didn't exist. And that was the story with Aman as well, because I heard that there was a project in Montenegro, actually, the Aman, and the owner of the project had a dispute with the architect. The architect was fired. And that was the information I had. So I found the email of Andrea Zeka, who was the founder of Aman at that time, and started emailing these very long emails, kind of like 2 pages email, and saying how great we are, how fantastic we are, and how much we can do for them. And, they have to give us a chance. And I was writing my mobile right under every single email and 30 emails a day. So he gets so upset and he calls me. He was very angry. He said, you have to stop sending those emails. You have to stop doing that. That's not proper. And I said, okay, but can you give me a chance? Can you give me the support? I know I can do it. I know I have the talent. I know we can do it. We can do it fantastic for you. Just give me the chance. So he says, okay, I'll give you the chance. You have 10 days to design for me 3 Amman villas. And if I like them, then you will become one of my Amman architects. But if I don't, then I'll make sure you're out of the industry. I said, we have a deal. Like, we have a deal. So 10 days, no sleep, obviously. It was amazing. I'm telling you, it was the best time ever. No one in the office said, I'm tired, I'm sleepy. Everybody was so excited. It was so fantastic. We had the most amazing concept. We took Philamiloser, we worked with mathematics and the grids, and we made a very modern translation of a very traditional building that existed in Montenegro. So it has the feel of a traditional building, but it is truly a very modern building and worked with proportions. It was purely symmetrical, really nice. And back at that time, we didn't have the renders, as I said. So we went to Singapore to present to Aman, this big desk of 20 people, and I'm trying to show my sketches and layouts and trembling. And at the end of the presentation, he was so excited. He clapped, he says, "Congratulations, you're my new architects." So he took us to Amanpuri together with Scott and Vincent and the technical services team. And they trained us, they Amanized us, they taught us how to design hotels for experience. And that's when the journey for hospitality began, because the sports and everything that we had learned up to that time, we were at zero. Like, we started from scratch and we learned so many things. And most important, what we learned and what is guiding us. And that's why I went to see him this year in Singapore. And he's amazing. He's fantastic. He's such a mentor all the way. He never gave a brief in a sense of document. He would never say, change this into that. He would always say, I want my guests to feel like that. I want my guests to experience the tree, and he would say, I don't want to have, this kind of desk that you have in these hotels that looks against the wall and there's a TV right above. Like, get rid of that. If you want to have a desk, just put it in front of the window, make sure it's amazing, or otherwise don't do it at all. Or take a look at the plot, check on the landscape, just hear the whistle of the wind, and make sure you allocate a table there for private dining so your guests can hear the whistle. Make sure you find the right tree to put, a moment there, two chairs, just two chairs for our guests to go see the sunset from the best location. And he was saying, your task is, when you go to a plot and it's an empty plot, and you sit, because when we do hotels, and especially resorts, but hotels is usually an amazing location. It has something fantastic with the nature, with the views. There's a nice place, like this really unique place. And then when the architect comes in, everything goes away, and there's this architectural ego that sits instead of nature, and it ruins the whole thing. So what he said is, no, you have to make sure your guests experience what you've seen the first time you go inside. So now, whenever we start a project, we spend hours and hours and days on site to hear every single whisper, to figure out and find every secret that this location has, so we can offer it back to our guests, because that's the reason, actually, this hotel was built there at the first place. So it's kind of an opposite process than the usual, right? So it's not about the architecture, it's about the landscape.
I love that.
You mentioned that you have the office now in Toronto, you're opening an office in London, you have the office in Athens, and working in locations and time zones around the world can be complicated. What advice do you have for other architects who are trying to navigate a multinational client base?
So there are a lot of opportunities and difficulties with that. So imagine that I travel in multiple locations within a week or within a month, and I get to have this kind of challenging time zones and organizing the time zones. So what I do is I do a trick, because I have three kids, right? I have three daughters. They call Eleni and Dionysia. So I always worked. So it was never a time that I stopped working. But in order to manage what I did, I didn't keep a clock like a normal 8 hours or daytime, nighttime. It was always a 24/7 life, right? That you get to sleep whenever you can. And the rest of the day has to do with the things that you have to do, right? Or the things that you have to handle. But this is also very, very exciting, because in every place that I go, I'm not even sleepy, because it's nice. You see new locations, new cultures, you get to travel, meet the most exciting people, because people that work in the hospitality industry, international people, they're super exciting, smart, well traveled. So you get to meet these people. You get to see the nicest locations ever. And we're so, like, I cannot even believe people pay us to do that, because I love it so much. And and then you get to design and be creative, and create a vision like that people will build and live into that. Like, I don't know, like, it's great. It's just great.
What changes have you seen in luxury hospitality expectations? Are there certain types of spaces or amenities or experiences that people are seeking now more than they did previously?
So why I see that people now, in contrast to what existed before, people are well traveled. They have all the social and other mediums that they can see a lot of hotels, a lot of design features and everything. But what is the most successful of all, and what everybody's longing for, is a project, a hotel or a resort that you get to have authenticity in design, in experiences, in materials, not authenticity in a form of copying, right? No one says, you get to have, this kind of traditional feature and just put it there. You have to be able to create an interpretation, a modern interpretation of the culture, the history, and the design of the place, but also integrate this design with the experience at the same time. So when we design something, the reason that we're doing that and we see that people love it, and there are other places that they do the same, when we design something, we want to have integrated into our design all the experiences. Like, for example, if we want to have a speakeasy inside a rock, right? So we have this crack of a rock and we do a speakeasy bar. Or if we want to have horse riding experiences and we do beautiful cabanas or beautiful locations to experience that. Or related to the sea, or tree houses, because this is inside the jungle and connect with the monkeys. All those things, they're related to design. And I think people now, they want to have the authentic experience of a place, but nicely curated.
That's a great way of putting it.
So, what about the architecture profession is most exciting to you today? We've kind of talked through the history of your journey here, but talk me through that.
So for me, architecture is my life. I live and breathe architecture. There's no way I could imagine myself doing anything else. What I love more about it is that you form people's lives through art and culture. It's a method of creating a sculpture and informing with history and tradition and sense of place and experiences, and all together with beauty. So you have the beauty, you have the form, you have the function, you have the engineering, which is super important. You have the respect towards the environment, and then all together, you're like a maestro. Like sometimes I say, an architect is like a maestro, and you make the composition as well. So it's kind of like a double role. But then you have to guide a whole group of other specialties all together in order to form this vision. And once you do that, there's a moment which is the most spectacular moment, is the moment of that you have the concept, right? So for me, when I think of designing a building, there's this unique moment in the concept stage when you perceive the idea. Right? It could be a random one, maybe during the night, or when you draw a sketch, or you see something and then you say, I got it, that's what it should be like. And then you start sketching and you figure out every single detail. That's the most exciting moment, the most fascinating moment. It's the creation. Then the rest of the project goes by because you're trying to explain what you had in your mind at the first place. And then when you arrive at the opening of the place, everybody's excited, but you're not excited because you knew it all along. You've seen it in your mind. You know what's gonna happen. So everybody says, "Oh, you well done. That's so great." I said, "Okay, I knew it." And you have to fight your whole way through project managers and value engineering and say, "No, guys, that's gonna be amazing. We have to do it this way." I remember once we were doing a project here in Greece, and I had a huge fight with the project manager and the owner for the facade. And they said, you take the whole responsibility. And if it doesn't work, I take the whole, that's fine. I'll take the responsibility. When they removed the scaffolding and they saw the building, they cried. And they told me, you were right all along. I said, I knew. You did. I knew it was, it was amazing. So yeah, that's architecture. It's fascinating. It's amazing. It's life. It's just a way of living.
Ria, thank you so much for spending time with us today. This is just, I feel very inspired to just go about my day and my life. And so thank you for being our guest.
Thank you.
This has been As Built, and we will see you next time.